Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, then hi, my name is Monisha. I'm a psychiatrist working here in London. This video today is one of the most asked ones, and I wanted to give it a bit of a disclaimer before I jump right into it. The reason I'm filming this video is not because I think one is better than the other. The reason I'm filming this video is to state the reasons why I moved to the UK. I'm not saying these are the reasons why you should be moving to the UK. These are just the reasons that have worked for me, and these were my criteria and my preferences. Having said that, I know this is not going to work for everyone, so you should get all the information that you can from everyone who's moved to whichever country and then make a decision based on what works best for you. So today's video kind of talks about what are the reasons that I took into consideration and why I chose to move to the UK and not to USA. Okay, right off the bat, reason number one is applying for residency program of your choice. Prior to 2019, there was something called RLMT, which stands for Resident Labor Market Test. What it meant that a lot of the specialties were not open to people who were non-UK or non-Europeans, basically people like us who are international medical graduates. This sort of changed in 2019 where everybody was made to be at the same level. So all the specialties open to both international medical graduates, that's like non-UK, non-Europeans, at the same level as UK medical graduates as well. Here in the UK, you're at par with the UK medical graduates. You're considered at the same level as UK medical graduates while applying for a training program. This is not the case with USA actually. In the USA, the specialties which international medical graduates get mashed into kind of still remains the same, which is pediatrics, psychiatry, medicine, and just a few other handful specialties. Having said that, I'm not saying that as an international medical graduate, you're not going to get mashed into surgery in the USA. Obviously, there are lots of IMGs who are surgery residents there, but that has taken them years and years to build their portfolio, and USA still prefers their own medical graduates to match into competitive specialties, which is not the case in the UK. So if you come to the UK, you have equal chances of matching into competitive ones as much as a UK medical graduate. Talking about residency program, the point number two is the money that goes into it. In the UK, you spend zero, I repeat, £0, £0 to do your training program here, while in the USA, you spend lots of money to be applying to the programs and lots of money to get matched in the specialty of your choice, which is quite a stark difference between UK and USA. Point number three is UK is geographically closer to India. If I plan on visiting home where my family is in India, it would take me 8 hours to get home, which is not the case if I was living in USA. It would take me anywhere between 24 to 36 hours depending on which part of USA I live in to get back home to India. I speak to my family very often, so I don't have to be very much mindful even of the time difference between India and UK, and I can call my mom up when I finish my clinics at 5 PM and she would still be awake because it's still this very same day. While I was visiting my family in USA and I had to call my mom, I had to sort of schedule it in. I had to factor in the fact that there's so much of time difference between USA and India. Given the geographical distance between USA and India, it's much more expensive every time you plan your travel, which is not the case from UK to India. Obviously, unless you're traveling during Diwali, flights are obviously expensive. But if you plan your travel to India quite far in advance, then your flight tickets can cost 300 to 400 pounds, which is not the case if you are planning your trip from USA to India. A few years back, I had a family emergency back at home. I had just started working in the UK. It was 2 months in, and within a few hours notice, I had to travel back home, and I was able to reach home within 8 hours, which wouldn't have been the case if I was living in USA. Point number four is dependents in the UK can work. They do not require their own, sponsored visa, which is not the case in USA. If I had moved to the USA, my husband would have required to have his own visa to be able to work. He wouldn't have been able to work on a dependent visa. While here in the UK, right off the bat, he was able to apply for jobs and start working and have his own income, which honestly is a blessing. He did not require to be sponsored by his company to be able to work here. He could just be on a dependent visa and start working with a company. When talking about green cards, I'm going to talk about PR, which is permanent residency, or ILR in the UK terms, which is indefinite leave to remain. Here in the UK, it's pretty much straightforward compared to USA. If you've lived in the UK for 5 straight years on skilled worker visa or tier 2 visa, then you're eligible for something called ILR, which is indefinite leave to remain, or in layman's terms, it's basically PR or permanent residency. While in the USA, there's more than a 10-year wait to be eligible for green card. That's just a wait alone to get a green card. I haven't even touched on the topic of, changing your passports in the USA. So compared to that, it's much easier to switch your visa over here, swiftly moving from green card to changing your passports. In the UK, again, it's pretty much straightforward. Like I said, once you've been for 5 years in the UK, you can get your ILR, which is your PR. Once you've gotten your PR, you need to be on that for a year, and then you can apply for British passport, which honestly is a blessing for people like me who absolutely love traveling. I don't want to keep worrying about visas every time I want to visit a country, and that is primary reason why I would consider switching my passport. In the USA, on the other hand, it's a 10+ year wait alone to get a green card. I mean, forget about even changing your passport. I would prefer UK over USA just because I'm somebody who absolutely loves traveling. Next point is salary. Before you all jump for talking about money so openly, I am sorry, it's 2023. Financial education needs to be a part of our curriculum. I think it should have been a part of our curriculum growing up. Unfortunately, it wasn't. I think that we should be openly talking about money and talking about numbers, because it not just helps our colleagues but also the future generation who are growing up, and they would be fully aware as to what their salaries are going to look like if at all they choose to go into medicine or become a doctor. Having said that, I've made 2 full-fledged videos as to what the salaries are if you're working as a doctor here in the UK. This one is a generic video of all pay grades. This is a video number 1, and I've made another video wherein I've strictly talked about how much I earn being in co-trainee as a CT3 psychiatry here in the UK in London. So I'm going to put that video over here, so please feel free to go and watch that, what the exact numbers look like. Having talked about those 2 videos, I think doctors should be paid much higher than what we are paid working in any part of the world. For the amount of years that I've gone into training, the kind of risks that we take every day, I would fully agree with people who are currently striking, whether it's junior doctors or consultants, for pay rise. So I am in full support of that, because yeah, I don't think any of the numbers reflect what has gone into our training and what we do on a day-to-day basis. Having said that, within your training years or when you're doing your residency here in the UK, your salary is higher compared to you doing your training in the USA. On that note, I also know that once you become a consultant in USA, your salary is sometimes even twice or even 3 times higher than what a consultant salary here is in the UK. But then again, you've got your option of doing locum shifts, wherein you're flat out paid fees for the hours that you worked, or you're compensated for the extra hours you worked with hourly rate basis. I am going to put a screenshot of what BMA recommends your hourly rate should be based on your pay grade. Having said that, not everybody in the UK, not all the trusts or hospitals in the UK compensate for you for those hours at that rate, but I know so many hospitals who are working towards it and have started to kind of accept these changes and have started to pay these rates. Okay, next point is public transport. For somebody who finds parallel parking harder than passing her medical school exams, I'm so grateful that UK has such amazing public transport, whether it's national railways, whether it's underground tubes, or whether it's overground, or whether it's bus services. Oh my god, it's such a life changer, because in 5 years of living in the UK, not once have I had to struggle to commute from one place to the other, or I've been like, oh my god, I wish we had a car, which wouldn't have been the case if I was living in USA. Unless you're living in New York or Chicago, you fully need a car in USA. Even to go to do grocery shopping, you definitely need a car, which is not the case here in UK. You've got stress-free, affordable, and such a convenient way of commuting from one place to the other. And I also think that you save lots of money if you don't buy a car, because you don't have to worry about things like insurance, you don't have to worry about lease, or looking after the car and worrying about, I don't know, fines and things like that. So you save lots of money. It's so affordable to be using public transport. You've got your monthly passes that you can buy. You can have rail card as well, where you get 1/3 off every single time you travel. So I would say that it's a big bonus if you live in the UK. I mean, I personally like to walk to work. I personally do not mind a 40 minutes walk here in London, or 30 minutes walk. That feels perfectly fine to me, and I'm somebody who wants to maintain that side of my life and remain active that way. Okay, the next point. How can I not talk about the prize jewel of the UK, which is the National Health Service, which is NHS. I mean, free healthcare for all. That's absolutely unheard of anywhere in the world. From the time you walk into the hospital to the time you walk out of the hospital, everything is absolutely free, from GP appointments to surgeries to your medications. I mean, nowhere in the world can you get free healthcare for everybody. That's something that is unmatchable, and that's something you cannot get over that. I understand that you might say that in the USA you have insurance, which you fairly do, but the insurance company only pays part of the bill and you still pay a certain part of the bill. I know people who've had to go for occupational health checks in the USA for their job and have had to pay hundreds of dollars. That's something people over here will not relate to at all. I mean, I can give you an example that I've looked up online, wherein somebody who's been diagnosed with hypothyroidism. The reason I picked up hypothyroidism is because my husband has hypothyroidism. Since the time he's been diagnosed, to all the medications he's had, to all the routine blood tests that are done, everything is absolutely free. He's not had to pay a dime. While if you get diagnosed with hypothyroidism in USA, it could cost anywhere up to $200 a month for you in the USA, which is, oh my god, that sounds like a big amount to me. And also, I want to talk about something from my personal experience, wherein last year my husband unfortunately had a fall and we had to take him to the hospital, wherein he had to have a surgery done, which was ORIF, which is open reduction internal fixation. So he had an ORIF on his left arm, and from the time he walked into the A&E, to the surgery, to the anesthetics, to the medications, to the post-op recovery, to the post-op medications, to post-op x-ray, post-op follow-up months later, everything absolutely free. I looked up the cost of all of this that he had to go through in span of a month and a half last year, and how much it would have costed in USA in, on an average. We would have spent $9,000 for everything that I just talked about. Okay, next point is work-life balance. How can I make a video and not touch upon work-life balance? Work-life balance, I think, is absolutely unheard of from where I am in India, and it's pretty much similar in your residency years in USA as well. Right off the bat here in UK, you get 35 paid annual leaves a year, and this is excluding your weekends off or post-on calls off and things like that. So your 27 annual leaves plus 8 bank holidays in a year, and if you end up working on a bank holiday, then you get a day back in lieu as well. All of these things are completely unheard of when you're talking of your residency days, and also you're fully eligible to all of these days right off the bat, which isn't the case in USA. My cousin recently graduated and he gets 10 paid holidays a year only. That too not from the start itself. You need to have worked a certain days, and every month only has certain days of leave that gets accumulated, and there's some kind of a weird system that I couldn't understand. And I was like, if you are eligible for 10 days off, why can't you just take them within the first month of you've started, or whatever it is, if you want to take a holiday? But that's not how it works. In the UK, on the other hand, if you want to take your leaves, once you've started, you just can. Something else I wanted to touch upon while talking about work-life balance is the number of hours you work. You do not work for more than 40 hours a week here in the UK. If you end up having on-calls, then you're compensated for those many days off after your on-call, and this is to do during your residency period. I'm not talking about it when you become a consultant, where your work-life balance gets even better. But when you're a junior doctor, you do get compensated with your days off, you do get compensated with your time off, and you do get compensated in terms of your leaves and also the working hours. Okay, my final point is travel. Honestly, this is a personal one, and I'm not saying you should move countries to be able to travel. If that's something that's up your priority list, which it has been for me, I look at travel as education. For me, going to experience different country, going to experience their culture, food, lifestyle, people, all of that is education for me personally, and that's how I've looked at it since growing up days. And I fully agree and I'm fully aware that it's a privilege to have, but that's a privilege I was willing to work towards. This is not a concept that I heard my seniors talk about it back home in India, where work is kind of prioritized and work is worship, and people talk about traveling and seeing things and doing things once they've retired, which I have never fully understood. The reason being, as morbid as it sounds, how do you know you're going to live to the age of 60 to be able to travel? Like, how do you know what the future has in store for you? Number two, how do you know your health will permit you to do that? What makes you think that you're going to be physically capable or emotionally or mentally capable when you're 60 or 65 to then travel the whole world? That's not something that I have ever understood, and that's not something I wanted to do. I've always wanted to be able to travel, whether in a small or big way, while growing up, while I'm still relatively young, and while I'm doing my residency. I did not want to compromise on one thing to achieve the other. This is not a concept which is fully entertained in different parts of the world, but traveling is a very much integral part of people's life over here, which is something I have connected to, which is something I've resonated with. Well, that was one of the things that I factored in when I was moving to the UK, was that how close it is to Europe. I mean, if I have to catch a flight to UK to Europe. It takes me less than 2 hours to choose a country and I'll be there in Europe. And to be able to go on a weekend to Europe for a break, a weekend getaway during the off that I have during my residency years, and then get back to my life on a Monday, that just is such a privilege to have, and that's a privilege that I wanted to work towards, and that's a privilege I wanted to have for the rest of my life. Alright, that brings me to the end of the video. This video is in no way to tell you that one country is better than the other. No country is fully perfect. Grass is always greener on the other side, to be very honest, and there's always something you're going to be comparing for the rest of your life. So kind of sit down and see what works best for you and make a decision based off that. I'm in no way saying that UK is better than USA. These are just the criteria that I wanted to factor in before I made the big decision of leaving India, and what works for me might not work for you and vice versa. And this brings me to the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. If you did, then do consider giving it a big thumbs up. Also share and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Please do consider doing that. Hope you're looking after yourself and your loved ones, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.